the Director General, the Commandant, National Institute for Security Studies, may I, sirs, have your permission to commence this program, please? Thank you, sir. May we rise for the national anthem. Please, may we be seated. The National Security Advisor has represented, the Permanent Secretary, Special Services Office has also represented, the Director General, Department of State Services also represented, service chiefs and heads of security and law enforcement agencies here present or represented, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Chairman, Board of National Institute for Security Studies, Commandant, Management and Faculty, National Institute for Security Studies, National Headquarters Directors of the Department of State Services and Forum of Retired Directors, former Inspector General of Police and other retired heads of ministries, departments and agencies, heads of ministries, departments and parastatals, my lords, spiritual and temporal, your royal highnesses, majesties and all royalties, captains of industry, and the chief launcher of today's event, our guest speaker, book editors and book reviewer, the National Institute for Security Studies community, graduating participants, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished officers of Nigeria, good morning. My name is Dr. Peter Nochironyozo Afnaya, FSI. I'm privileged to be one of the anchors for today's program. And with me is...
I am Dr. Nka Obibison, FSI. I am a directing staff in the National Institute for Security Studies. Thank you for being with us. You're welcome.
And thank you, everyone. Having established our protocol and recognized everyone who has come to this place, it is my singular privilege, again, an opportunity to say welcome to every one of us, and particularly to our guest speaker to say karibu. Habari za Shubahi? Thank you. That is Swahili. The Commandant, National Institute for Security Studies, it is indeed a thing of joy to gather here once again to perform this annual ritual, to celebrate excellence, celebrate Africa, celebrate Nigeria, and indeed celebrate every one of us. We are thankful to God for his mercies, benevolence, blessings, and provisions. And today we are gathered here for two things. But before I mention that, I would want to say that coming to NISS is always a thing of joy. To be here, to witness excellence, to witness creativity, to witness innovation, to witness leadership, and to witness interagency relationship and combination of hands for excellence and achievement of order. The NISS is Nigeria's foremost training ground, an incubation ground for raising leaders of today and for tomorrow, managers of men and resources, and men who keep awake while Nigeria sleeps. And we want to believe that today marks the height and the peak of a winding down process of the Executive Intelligence Management Course 15, which is usually blessed at a time like this or marked with a graduation lecture. But this time around, we also have a launch of a book in honor of our indefatigable Director General, Alhaji Yusuf Magaji Bichi, CFR, FWC, a man who touches, who sees, conquers. And today, the book will be celebrating him, and we'll see through a series of programs a guest speaker who has come all the way from another part of Africa to rejoin his brothers to speak to us on conspiracy theory and the future of democracy and development in Africa. And we'll be hearing from him whether or not Africa is on the path of progress or whether Africa is sliding. And if Africa's problem is caused by Africa, or if the issues in Africa are external, we will be hearing from him. Before I go on, I want to seek the indulgence and permission of the Commandant to further introduce gentlemen and ladies who have come to witness history and witness a momentous occasion like this. And I have Malam Alihu Mohammed, the representative of the National Security Advisor. He is the Permanent Secretary, Special Services Office. Thank you, sir, and welcome. We also have Mr. David Atta, representative of the Permanent Secretary, Special Services Office. Mr. Atta is a director in the Ministry of Finance. We also have Commodore D.O.C. Igbo, a representative of the Chief of Naval Staff. We have AIG Habu A. Sani, PSC, FAIA, AIG Force Intelligence Bureau, and the representative of the Inspector General of Police. We have Dr. Solomon Arase, CFR, MPM, FW, FDC, former Inspector General of Police. In no order of introduction, we also have Madam Jennifer Motembo, Deputy High Commissioner, Zambia, Her Excellency. We also have the man of the moment, Alhaji Salisu Ibrahim Balarabe, representative of AA Rano, the chief launcher. Thank you, sir, for coming. We have His Excellency Ibrahim H.I. Al-Gamedi, Deputy Ambassador of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to Nigeria. His Excellency Stanilas Kamanzi, High Commissioner, Rwanda High Commission. Your Excellency, good morning. Representative of the Controller General of Nigeria Customs Service, Mr. O.K. Ekwalo, ACG. The representative of the Chief of Army Staff, Provost Marshal Army, Major General O.R. Ayeniba. The representative of the Commandant General of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, David Salami Abi, FSI, Assistant Commandant General. And to our national headquarters directors who are here present, we have Mr. Kabir Sani, who is wearing 2 feathers, the representative of the DGSS, and the Director Admin. Mr. Kabiru Sani is a fellow of the Security Institute, member, National Institute, and Assistant Director General in the Department of State Services. Good morning, sir. We also have in our midst Mr. Anthony Ademwaroka, FSI, FDC Director Economic Intelligence. Mr. Omar Abdullahi Yadu, FSI, FDC Director Crisis Management. Madam Winifred Chukwudi Eleku, FSI Dagadia, Acting Director Inspectorate. Good morning, ma'am. And Madam Bola Tito Kudirat Sure Olufe, FSI Acting Director Training and Staff Development. And to everyone who is here, as we move ahead, we will be announcing arrivals and presence of and we also have former Governor of Bauchi State Island, Mr. M.A. Abubakar. Thank you very much. And we also have the ICPC chairman present here. At this point, we have a tradition of introducing participants, faculty, and management of the National Institute. At this point, I want to hand over to Dr. Nka Obisong to please perform that assignment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Afunanya. Just before I do that, we also have with us here this morning the Zimbabwean High Commissioner. You're welcome, sir. Please a round of applause for him. The chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, seated in the audience this morning are 78 participants of the Executive Intelligence Management Course 15 and faculty members of the National Institute for Security Study. The course participants are drawn from 21 agencies in Nigeria, as well as 4 African countries. Specifically, we have international participants from the Gambia, from Ghana, from Niger, and Rwanda. The participants are deputy directors or above by rank, or its equivalent in the armed forces. Sir, the participants are undergoing a 10-month course in the institute, or should I say they have just concluded a 10-month course in the National Institute. And by the grace of God, will be awarded Fellow Security Institute if found worthy in learning and character. The purpose of the course is to impart on participants the required knowledge to address the dynamic and complex security challenges in their respective countries, as well as to foster interagency synergy and international cooperation. Sir, each year the National Institute crafts a theme of study for the participants. For 2022, the theme of EIMC 15 was the Global Climate Challenge, Prospects and Priorities for Economic Development and Conflict Resolution in Africa. With your kind permission, sir, I will now invite the participants to introduce themselves, and we will begin with the Monitor General. Thereafter, I'll introduce faculty. Monitor General, please.
Bill Usman Ibrahim, Department of State Services.
Amina Igwelosi Abdullahi, Department of State Services. Nahiru Yusuf Abdullahi, Minister of Petroleum Resources.
Murtala Muhammad, Department of State Services.
Sharifa Tebun Abdullahi, Department of State Services.
Akim Oluchokwe Abiola, Department of State Services.
Adamu Naibi Abubakar, Department of State Services.
Rukaiya Mustafa Zakari Abubakar, Federal Road Safety Corps.
Rashid Adeyinka Adelaku, Department of State Services.
Michael Kayode Adeoye, Department of State Services.
Adepoju Modupeola Olutoyin, Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board.
Daniel Ajete, Ghana Armed Forces.
Ajiwole Adebayo, Nigerian Police.
Ikechukwu Kingsley and Fro, Department of State Services.
Muhammad Alhaji Baba, Yobe State Government.
Edogbanya Sylvester Adaji of the Nigeria Police Force.
Victor Okonide, DSS.
Collins Edegware, Defense Intelligence Agency.
David Dovosin, the Gambia Armed Forces.
Timi Digitemia, the Department of the State Services.
Abdullahi Damani, Department of State Services.
Lamin B. Damfa, Office of the President, Republic of the Gambia.
Paul Emmanuel Demian, Department of State Services.
Chukura Alexander, Independent Corporatives and Other Related Offenses Commission.
Farouk Mohammed Borgu, Nigerian Air Force.
Bolaniwa Rafiu Adekunle, Department of State Services.
Ali Bindu Drimbita, Department of State Services. Bawa Usman Kaltungo, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC.
Aliyu Bashar, Department of State Services.
Balogun Shakiru Akintola, Department of State Services.
Akon Esifa, Minister of Petroleum Resources.
Ibrahim Usman Bello, Department of State Services.
Yahweh Ibrahim, Nigerian Correctional Service.
Mwaweze Yero Hamma, Department of State Services.
Inwa Nasuru Mohammed, Department of State Services.
Isa Abdullahi, EFCC.
Isa Usman Shuaibu, Department of State Services.
Odwak Otwita, the Nigeria Police Force.
Jacob Justina Uvie, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. Enekola Wole, Department of State Services.
Evelyn Yechen Kwaso, Department of State Services.
Abubakar Laro, Department of State Services.
Musa Likita, Defense Intelligence Agency.
Mohammed Nasir Sakari, Federal Road Safety Corps.
Abdullahi Mukhtar Muhammad, Compass Chamber.
Ozigi Idris, Nigeria Immigration Service.
Kenneth Okezie Owoto, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria.
Oshoko Bilkisu Kaka, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria.
Nkiru Rosemary Oji, Department of State Services.
Onyenakie Batlomi Omuhara, Onyihenadime, Nigerian Post Authority.
Batlomi Omwaka, Department of State Services.
Michael Ogao, Department of State Services.
Olajide Adeshoye Bamidele, Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment.
Olaguju Oladipo Suraj, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria.
Esther Okon, Standards Organization of Nigeria.
Jane Oyejuanjeme Okocha, Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Michael Nwogu, Department of State Services.
Nwanuku Nnamdi, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps.
Aliyu Nuhu Naibi, AFCC.
Ndomad Samuel Ogochukwu, Nigeria Immigration Service.
Gilbert Ndatsikira, Rwanda Defense Force.
Nafiu Hassan Naaba, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria.
Rasaki Kufuli Olusesan, Nigeria Security and Civil Corps.
Nasir Umar Safiano, Department of State Services.
Yahya A. Salam, Ministry of Petroleum Resources.
Ilyas Usani, DSS.
San, Department of State Services.
Solomon Shihi, Pharmacy Council of Nigeria.
Gali Mahmoud Sule, Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria.
Tukuraya Yakubu, Nigerian Correctional Service.
Benedict Ubi, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission.
Ukebuchiaka Stephen, Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria.
Adamu Ahmad Umar, Department of State Services.
Mohammed Inua Umar Buratai, National Universities Commission.
Yakin Wasiu, Nigerian Army.
Bama Izana, Yobe State Government.
Thank you very much, course participants. Please a round of applause for them. Leading the faculty this morning is the Commandant of the National Institute for Security Studies, A.S. Adeleke, FSI Daga, MNI. He is ably assisted by the Deputy Commandant and Director of Studies, D.E. Egbeji, FSI Daga, FDC. We also have the Director of Research, Estimate and Library Services, Dr. A.A. Karim, FSI Daga. The Director, Coordination and Liaison Services, Mrs. E.E. Oyeyele, FSI Daga. The Director, Administration, Mrs. Ngozi Onyemuchara, FSI. Director, Technical Services, Mr. Engineer Thomas Alege, FSI. Director, Strategic Communication and Engagement, Alhaji Lawal Arugungu, FSI. Other members of faculty include Mr. Isaac Shotayo, FSI Syndicate Supervisor, Professor Amadou Sise, Study Group Coordinator, Professor Abubakar S. Abba, Study Group Coordinator, Commodore M.F. Daniel, PSC Daga, FWC Daga, FDC Daga, Study Group Coordinator. We have Mr. Ayuba Barnabas, Syndicate Supervisor, Professor Oshita, Study Group Coordinator, Ambassador Dr. Magashi, FDC, Directing Staff. We have Commodore James Edako, FDC, Directing Staff. Mr. Godwin Ometu, FSI Syndicate Supervisor. Dr. Steve Ojelade, FSI Daga, Directing Staff. Professor Mike Maduagu, Study Group Coordinator. Dr. Jesse Duru, Directing Staff. Mr. Emeko Ugu, Research Fellow. We also have Professor Saleh Dauda, Study Group Coordinator. Professor Muhammad Bello Umar, Study Group Coordinator. Mrs. Veronica Joshua, Research Fellow. Mr. Emmanuel Semonu, Syndicate Supervisor. Mr. Okpeleko, FSI, Directing Staff. We have our mama in the house, Professor Felicia Olase Inde Williams, Study Group Coordinator. It's good to have you around, ma. Mr. Chairman, you may be surprised why she's being held. Madam had an accident and she's been at home for some time. So we are seeing her for the first time today. Please, another round of applause for her. We have Group Captain Mohammed Gumi, MNI PSC Daga, Directing Staff. Alhaji Shehu Sani, MNI, Directing Staff. We also have Barrister Brown Ekwaba, Directing Staff. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. At this juncture, please permit me to invite the Commandant for his welcome address. Commandant, sir.
Please permit me to stand on already established protocol. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure that I welcome you all to the graduation lecture of the Executive Intelligence Management Course 15. Today's occasion is a twin event. First, the book titled Manage the Gate, a first trip for our amiable Director General, YM Bichi, CFR FWC, which will shortly be unveiled. This will then follow by the graduation lecture to be presented by our erudite professor, Professor Patrick Elo Lumumba, a foremost Pan-Africanist in recognition of our DG's numerous contributions to national development, particularly the country's security architecture, the Institute brought together seasoned researchers to celebrate the courage, commitment, and patriotism with a special publication. On assumption of office, as the 12th Director General of the State Services, our honoree hit the ground running by unveiling the blueprints and dreams for the service, focusing on the need to leave behind an enduring legacy centered on improving the general well-being of staff and multi-layer security operation to ensure peace and stability of the nation. From that time till now, it has been an array of achievement on all fronts of security arrangement, security management, despite myriad of security challenges facing the nation. The book Manage the Gate is the NISS way of appreciating and preserving its vision and services to the present to the nation and its work for posterity. As stated earlier, this program is a twinfold. Seated in our midst is the presenter of our graduation lecture this year, Professor, like I mentioned earlier, Professor Lumumba. He will be speaking to us shortly on the topic, Conspiracy Theory and the Future of Democracy and Development in Africa. Permit me to note the graduation lecture is very much in line with the theme of the study for this year, which is Global Climate Challenge, Prospects and Priorities for Economic Development and Conflict Resolution in Africa. The DGSS and management of the Institute are very forward-looking in approving the theme of the global climate change for study in the Institute this year. You all therefore agree with me that the theme of study for the course is appropriate, as the climate change is a major challenge affecting the countries in the world at the moment, from shifting weather patterns that threaten food production to rising sea level that increase the risk of flooding and other related risks. The impact of climate change are becoming unprecedented, both in scale and dimension, not only in Africa, but all over the world. All the countries in the world must take the issue of climate change more seriously to save the planet Earth, both for present and future generations. I cannot but agree with the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who at the just concluded UN Climate Change Conference, COP27, held in Egypt, said, and I quote, "The global climate fight will be won or lost in this crucial decade on our watch. So let us fight together and let us win. For the 8 billion members of our human family and for generations to come." As for our distinguished graduation lecturer, his citation will soon be read, and suffice to say that Professor Lumumba is known worldwide and is a foremost Pan-Africanist. I shall not anticipate that what he's going to say in terms of governance and security challenges in Africa, but I must recall that only in February this year, he asserted in Abuja that the day Nigeria gets it right, Africa will get it right. He also said on Monday this week at the 10th Memorial Lecture in honor of late Abubakar Olushola Saraki that Africa is not going to grow as long as you are in a position of leadership. And you have perfected the act of appealing to the stomach rather than minds of men and women that you lead. Our guest lecturer, sir, on behalf of the DGSSS, board management, and the faculty members of the Institute, I humbly appreciate you for honoring our invitation. Despite your extremely busy schedule, we are most grateful. The chairman of today's event, on behalf of the NISS community, we appreciate you for identifying with us. And with the chief launcher, Alhaji Abdullah Anwalu Rano, Executive Chairman of AA Rano Nigeria Limited, we are indeed glad to have you in our midst this morning. You are an employer of labor whose footprint spread across Nigeria. Let me also use this forum to congratulate you on your scheduled flight operation to different states. We appreciate your gesture and look forward to you commissioning the Institute to donate the books to various libraries in the country. The co-launcher, who is former immediate past governor of Bauchi State and who has recently been inducted as a son, let me thank you for joining us on this occasion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I most sincerely welcome you all to today's event and appreciate all of you for facilitating with the DGSS, graduates, and NISS community. I want to seize this opportunity to appreciate in no particular order all the other agencies that are here, our national headquarters directors, our friends in the high commissions, various African high commissions and embassies, particularly Saudi, Rwanda, Zimbabwe, and others that are here. And of course, the former IGP. You have always been identifying with us. We thank you immensely. And of course, Director of Center for Peace in University of Ilorin is a testimony of the working relationship between University of Ilorin and us. And of course, let me thank the book reviewer ahead of time, Professor Albert. He has always been with us. I thank you sincerely. And of course, let me not forget all the president of ANI, Barrister Mike Ejiofor, and his ESCO members for coming around to felicitate with us. Members of the press, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much, the Commandant. I think he deserves a better round of applause. Thank you. It is my privilege to now very respectfully invite the representative of the NSA, Malam Aliu Mohammed, for his opening remarks. Sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand on the existing protocol already established. The NSA would have loved to be here, but unfortunately, due to other pressing national assignments, he is unavoidably absent. And he asked me to extend his felicitation and warm congratulations to the graduating course participants. On this note, let me read his address. It is indeed a great honor to me to chair this auspicious occasion for the twin event of graduation lecture for the Executive Intelligence Management course 15 and book presentation in honor of the Director General State Services, Yusuf Magaji Bichi, CFR, FWC. Indeed, Alhaji Yusuf Magaji Bichi, the chief spy of the country, is highly deserving of this great recognition by the National Institute for Security Studies, considering his numerous contributions towards securing the nation. It is in this regard that he was recently conferred with the prestigious National Award of Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic by the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for his tenacity and numerous achievements on all fronts of security management. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our astute guest lecturer, Professor Patrice Lumumba, is known worldwide, particularly in the African continent, as a Pan-Africanist. Having him here is a great privilege, and I would like to commend the Institute for bringing him to reawaken our thought on ways to move the entire continent forward. Permit me also to state that the theme of this year's Executive Intelligence Management course, Global Climate Change, Prospect and Priorities for Economic Development and Conflict Resolution in Africa is very apt, as negative impacts of climate change is felt all around the world. To the 78 course participants, I urge you to make utmost use of this opportunity, and wish you well in your future endeavors. On this note, I welcome you and wish you all success in all your future endeavors. Thank you very much.
And indeed, all of us here join the NSA to wish the graduating participants well. May we please give the Commandant, ladies and gentlemen, the hour is now. The time is here. We have gotten into one of the reasons we are here today, the first segment of this program, which is a book presentation. But before we get into that, may the two editors of the book, Dr. Aboyega A. Karim and Professor Amadou Sese, please stand for recognition. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Thank you. May everyone who has a contribution in the book please rise and be recognized. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. There are two or three aspects of the book presentation. One will be the book review, followed by the unveiling, and then a short lunch. We don't intend to make this aspect a very long program, so everything we are going to do there will be very short, direct, and clear. And we want to start with the book review. The book reviewer is Professor Isaac Albert. And the only resume I can read about him is that Isaac Albert was my teacher. He still remains my teacher. and he's the teacher of teachers. Prof, please.
Thank you very much. Time is not our friend, and therefore this could be termed the shortest book review I've ever done. The book that we are presenting to you today is titled Manning the Gates, Essays in Honor of Yusuf Magaji Bichi, CFR FWC. The honoree, born 23rd February 1956, is the current Director General, State Services. The term gates in the book is operationalized to mean Nigeria's land, air, and maritime borders, which are serially breached by criminal elements within and outside the country. A similar situation is witnessed in many other parts of the world, most especially America and Europe. That is why border security is a key campaign issue in different parts of the developed world today. The emphasis of the publication under review is on the competing mechanisms for safeguarding the gates. The work takes off with the foreword written by the Commandant of the National Institute of Security Studies, Buhari, Alhaji A.S. Adeleke, FSI Daga, MI9, and fellow Society for Peace Studies and Practice, FICCON. He has been in career partnership with the honoree since the 1980s. And in this book, he paints him in glowing terms. He concluded the foreword with an exhortation to all and sundry, and I quote him, "I wish to crave the indulgence of all lovers of peace, stability, and development in Nigeria to find time to read the book to further enrich their knowledge of the security architecture of our nation," end of quote. The Commandant's submission is followed by the goodwill message of PC Nwadua, OFR, a former Director General of DSS. He particularly thanked Mr. Adeleke and his staff for honoring Alhaji Bichi, and most especially for turning the Nigerian National Institute of Security Study into a center of excellence. And I think I want to join Mr. Nwadua in this regard, because I was part of the history of this place, and this place has grown so fast to the extent that it is today a center of excellence in Africa. The book itself consists of 35 chapters, broken into 5 interlinked sections. We have 45 authors. It is impossible for me, within the time given to me, to mention what all the authors said, and therefore I will focus only on the sections. The only paper in section A introduces the entire work, the rationale, contents, and expected contributions to knowledge, and while the publication is in honor of Bichi. Section B focuses on the operators of the national security gates in Nigeria, and by this we are making reference to the customs, immigrations, the military, and all other security agencies that are saddled with the responsibility of keeping our borders safe. Section C is on how the gates are manned. Here we're referring to strategy as different from tactics and operations. The challenges of manning the gates are discussed in section D, while the last section, E, focuses on the efforts being made to address the challenges. So we're saying here that there would certainly be challenges, in manning your borders, no matter the complex nature of your systems in place. The book has undoubtedly achieved 2 strategic objectives in my own consideration. The first is the great honor it has done Yusuf Magaji Bichi, the DG of DSS. I congratulate him for meriting this attention while still alive and in active service. It is not everybody that is that lucky. Not everybody is that lucky. The issues addressed by the publication, which is the second factor for noting, adds to Beach's luck, manning Nigeria's gates. It is a subject matter of increasing global importance. Here in Nigeria, many of the problems we have today are tied to our border problems. Arms smuggling, foreign fighters, drugs, human trafficking, and so on. Producing a book that takes a holistic look at how the problems are being managed by Nigeria is no mean task. The publication explains what the challenges are, how they have been tackled, the gaps left to be filled, and the efforts being made at filling them. Not only by Nigeria, but also by the other members of the international community. This will give the book a worldwide readership. And now I conclude. Now, in the course of reading this book, I noticed a few other issues that we need to follow up, most especially from the recommendations of the editors. The first has to do with the nagging question of interagency collaboration in managing Nigeria's borders. We have written extensively on interagency collaboration in dealing with our security problems. But those working on borders, I think, have issues. Because as we come into Nigeria, we see conflict that have to be managed. So in future, I expect us to have some essays on it. The essays in the book render excellent accounts of what each of the agencies did and are doing, but not much is said about how they are collaborating. In today's world, security agencies can no longer work in silos. What kind of collaborative efforts will make the manning of Nigeria's border better? How do the agencies train together and work across services, most especially around border issues? It is not just a matter of their exchanging of information. The second question that should be answered pertains to what Nigeria has to learn from globalization. What do we have to learn from borders management, most especially in the developed world? Answering these questions will enable us to be better informed about the roles of international diplomacy in keeping our borders safe. The third concern pertains to the need to mainstream gender in borders management. This is made necessary by the increasing rate at which women are getting implicated in border-related security problems. Now the last paragraph. It is necessary to commend the editors of the book for a work well done. I assess manuscripts for leading publishers in different parts of the world, and I could say from such a standpoint that this is a standard book that could compete with any others globally. I commend the National Institute of Security Studies that published the book, and I'd like to also commend the two editors. Dr. Karim was the first PhD student we produced at the University of Ilorin in partnership with this institute. I salute you. I also salute Professor Sese, who has been my boss for a very long time. In fact, when I was to become a reader, he was one of my assessors. Many of my former students contributed, and as Afunanya said, he contributed. But my successor as the director of the Center for Peace Studies, Ilorin, Professor Williams, is here. I salute all of you for a job well done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Isaac Albert. Please, may we give him a round of applause. In the course of reading the book, you will appreciate how and why all security agents are gatekeepers and gatemen. So when next they call you gateman, please don't be angry. We are all gatekeepers. The Commandant, sir, may I crave your permission to please request that there are many staff of the DSS, Army, Police, Immigration, Correctional Service, who in the course of their job, in manning the gate, also pay the supreme price. May we please rise for a minute silence in their honor. May the souls of the departed, including all Nigerians who have died in the service of nation, rest in peace. Please, may we be seated. I can only imagine how happy and excited the entire staff and management of DSS, how excited you all are. I think there couldn't have been any more time to be prouder than now for our DG. May we please, in honor of our DG, all SSS persons rise and take and be recognized. Please, clap for yourselves. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please be seated. I am very much aware that if DG were here to make his speech, and I also know that his speech will also include that he's proud of you, that whatever he has achieved, you made it possible. Because you are in the field, you take his orders, you are resilient, you are determined, you are very courageous, and you are a different species of Nigerians. May your labors never be in vain. At this point also, I pay very special respect to my own DG, the man we work for, the man we work with. Every day around him is a new lesson. It's a lesson in humility, it's a lesson in doing things, it's a lesson in relationships, it's a lesson in doggedness, a lesson in patience, a lesson in achievements, a lesson in leadership. A round of applause for our DG. No wonder, therefore, he was honored with the national honor of Commander of the Federal Republic, including several awards. I'm harvesting his awards, his honors, as his public relations officer. And by this afternoon, the DG has gotten over 125 honors and awards from different stakeholders, spectrum of individuals, groups, associations, international, national, and community. At this point, we also will thank the Commander-in-Chief and President who also identified and appointed our DG. We especially give kudos and thankfulness to our own President, General Mohammed Buhari, GCFR. Thank you. Before we get into the other part of the book presentation, I want to especially recognize the representative of the EFCC chairman, Mr. Saad Abubakar, FSI, Director Intelligence, EFCC. His Royal Highness Alhaji Hamza Usman, Taba of Ibira Land. Dr. Bashir Mohammed, FSI MNI, Director Human Resource Management, FCT, representing the Honorable Minister of State, FCT, Dr. Ramatu Tijani Aliu. Ambassador Mrs. Ochendo, the representative of the DG NIA and a member of the board of National Institute. Of course, we have recognized His Excellency M.A. Abubakar San, former governor of Bauchi State. Barrister Mike Ejiofor, FSI, President, Alumni Association of NIS. Thank you for coming and congratulations on your recent victory. We also have Alhaji Hamid Saleh. Thank you, everyone. Please, may I seek again the permission of the Commandant to invite the representative of the NSA, who is also the chairman of this occasion. Please, sir. The representative of the Director General of the Department of State Services, sir. The Chief Launcher, the Commandant, our editors, please, sir, our guest honor, sir, the guest, our special guest, please, sir. Yes, sir. Representatives of service chiefs, Your Excellency, the former governor. the ambassadors of Rwanda and Saudi Arabia, please. The Emir of Ibira land.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, we are unveiling these very important books.
Please, may you please unveil the book. May everyone here please take a copy. Please. May every... Please, the National Headquarters Directors. Yes. The book is on display. Please, may we just lift the book and show the public. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. May we please get back to our seats. Thank you very much. Okay, at this point, we are going into the last segment of the book presentation, which is the book launch. We also will have to be very short with that ceremony. We will invite only 3 persons to the podium to make presentation and a very short speech while launching the book. A slip will be passed around. The slip has account details, and if you want, you indicate by a raise of your hand, and the ushers will come around and give you the book, or depending on the number that you want. You will sign and give your name and other details that the slip may require. The idea is that we don't want to waste more time on the book launch and the flood here with speeches and persons. In that regard, I wish to invite the chief launcher and representative of Alhaji A.A. Rano, Alhaji Sani Balarabe, please to come forward. And Mr. Balarabe is the chief launcher of the book Manning the Gates, Essays in Honor of Y.M. Bichi. Please.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن والاه. I wish to stand on the existing protocols. First and foremost, I wish to convey the warmest appreciation and profound gratitude of my boss, who is unavoidably absent due to tight schedules that have kept him so busy throughout this week. On behalf of his family, staff, and other respective business associates, my boss feels honored to be accorded such a prestigious status of serving as the chief launcher in an event of national relevance, especially now that our dear country is doing everything humanly possible to contain a threat that has become a universal issue. Today, no doubt, history is being made. Esteemed invited guests, distinguished personalities, and members of this great institute, luminaries of different walks of life who have all graced this landmark ceremony, ladies and gentlemen, it gladdens the heart and souls of our partners in progress and well-wishers who have demonstrated over the years their confidence and loyalty resulting from the optimum satisfaction which our products and services have given them. This occasion is a clear testimony that ours is a book-loving society where reading materials will continue to grace our libraries. I therefore wish to reiterate my thankfulness for bestowing upon me this exclusive honor of serving as the chief launcher. Once again, I thank you so much. On this note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I wish to humbly launch this book with 20 million naira. Long live Nigeria Institute of Security Studies. Long live Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you and God bless you more.
Thank you very much. The applause is not 20 million words. This is only 5 million, 15 million. Thank you very much. We appreciate. Mr. Hamid Abo, the chairman of Forum of Retired Directors. You are welcome, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Saleh and many other former directors that are here, thank you. At this point, we want to invite the Director General, Department of State Services, in whose honor the book has been written, to make both his speech and also launch the book, to encourage his children that have taken out time to do the book. At this point, I wish to invite Mr. Kabir Sani, FSI, MNI, Director, Admin, and representative of the DG, to please present DG's address and launch the book.
The chairman, sir, the commandant, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm here to represent the Director General, Department of State Services, Alhaji Yusuf Magaji Bichi, Fellow of War College, CFR. Indeed, DG wished to have been here, but for some pressing national assignment, he couldn't be here, so he asked me to represent him. Indeed, today is a very significant day because the book written in honor of the DG is a first of its kind. And I would like to commend the Commandant and the entire staff and management of this great institution for finding time to write this book. It's very important because I'm very, very sure that it will contribute to knowledge, it will contribute to our understanding of the current security challenges facing the country. And it is an attempt to find solutions to this existential threat to national security. Now, I will read his speech. Permit me to read his speech. Now, it is my singular honor and privilege to be at the National Institute for Security Studies to represent the Director General of the Department of State Services, Alhaji Yusuf Magaji Bichi, CFR FWC, for the graduation lecture titled Conspiracy Theory and the Future of Democracy and Development in Africa, for the graduates of the Executive Intelligence Management Course 15, 2022. The EIMC 15 aptly themed Global Climate Challenges, Prospects, Priorities for Economic Development and Conflict Resolution in Africa is very, very significant in many ways, especially in the wake of the prevailing environmental challenges in the continent and the overarching disagreement among the most industrialized nations on net zero emission targets in order to curb the rising effect of global warming and its negative impact on the least industrialized nations of Africa. Nigeria's climate has over the years witnessed increased temperature, variable rainfall, rise in sea level, and flooding, drought, and desertification. The duration and the intensities of rainfall exacerbated the recent flooding and submersion of coastal lands, particularly in the states of Bayelsa, Kogi, Jigawa, Rivers, Lagos, among others, with its attendant loss of lives and property. In view of this negative impact of climate change and the need to preserve a livable planet, global temperature increase need to be limited to its pre-industrial levels in compliance with the Paris Agreement. It is instructive to note that EIMC 15 is part of that journey towards transitioning to net zero world. Participants have devoted themselves to the study, analysis, and research of the course team from the global, regional, and local perspectives, with a view to articulating a fit for purpose climate change mitigative and adaptive measures, as well as an enduring climate policy document for the country. Throughout the course, participants have pursued these objectives vigorously through lectures, seminars, workshops, as well as local, regional, and world study tours to enable the effective interrogation of the team. Distinguished invited guests, let me at this juncture state that this has been a fulfilling academic year for the participants, especially in their course towards addressing the myriads of existential climate challenges confronting the nation, Africa, and the world at large. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, worthy course participants, it is on this note that I, on behalf of DGSSS, declare the graduation lecture open. I wish you fruitful deliberations. I would like to launch the book with undisclosed amount of money. Thank you very much for your rapt attention.
Please, may we give a round of applause to the DG. I would have been surprised if DSS will reveal the amount. So, may I invite His Excellency Alhaji Mohammed Abdullahi Abubakar, Senior Advocate of Nigeria and former Governor of Bauchi State, to please launch the books.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وبعد. The chairman of this occasion, in person of the National Security Advisor, ably represented, the guest lecturer, and permit me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to not rest on existing protocols because of the evidence of weight and the weight of evidence, fearing that if I rest on it, it may collapse. So I'll adopt the existing protocols. I'm actually a retiree. And retirees, find it very difficult launching books or doing any launchings at all. But because of the grace of God and the hopes that I have for the future, on Monday, I was conferred with the coveted title of Senior Advocate of Nigeria. And I'm hoping that that will portend good things to come. And in that spirit, and because of the fact that I'm a friend of the Institute, even as governor, I had an occasion to come and give a lecture here. I'll launch the book with a sum of 5 million naira. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Please, may we give him another round of applause. Yes, Your Excellency has exhibited greatness and has exemplified what diligence is all about. Even in retirement, he became a son. So, it's a food for thought for all of us. Congratulations, sir. We are actually coming to the peak and the reason why most people came here. I know ears are wide open and we will be getting into the second and the last segment of this, and that will be the presentation of the graduation lecture by Professor Patrick Lumumba, founder, PLO Lumumba Foundation, Nairobi, Kenya. Commandant, sir, I want to seek your permission to hand over the microphone to my co-anchor, Dr. Obisong, to please coordinate the book, the lecture presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Peter. The chairman, sir, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience. We are in the next segment of this program, and I will very quickly present an abridged version of the profile of our guest speaker. Profile of Professor P.L.O. Lumumba. Professor Lumumba is a professor of public law. He holds a Doctor of Laws degree on the law of the sea from the University of Ghent, Belgium, a Master of Law degree and Bachelor of Law degree from the University of Nairobi. Professor Lumumba also holds an honorary degree of Doctor of Letters from the University of Cape Coast, Ghana, and a Doctor of Science from Bells University of Technology, Nigeria. Our guest speaker has been trained on human rights at the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, University of London, England, on humanitarian law at the Royal Wellingborough Institute of the University of Lund in Sweden, and on international humanitarian law in Geneva, Switzerland. He is an advocate of the High Courts of Kenya and Tanganyika and a certified mediator. Professor Lumumba is the immediate former director and chief executive officer of Kenya School of Law, a former secretary of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, and a former director of the defunct Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. Our guest speaker has written, edited, and co-authored several books on criminal procedure, judicial review, administrative law, the Constitution, ethics, and politics. He has published numerous articles in refereed journals and several book chapters. Recently, he also ventured into fiction with his book, Stolen Moments. Professor Lumumba is a recipient of several local and international awards and recognitions. There are very, very many. For want of time, Mr. Chairman, please permit me to mention just a few. In 2017, he received the Lifetime Achievement Award for Patriotism and Advocacy by the African Forum. In the same year, he was recognized by New African Magazine as one of the 100 most influential Africans. In January 2018, our guest speaker received the following awards and recognition: African Luminary Award by African Cultural Association in the United States of America, Freedom of the City of Lowell in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the United States of America for his role in the fight against corruption and bad governance in Africa. Recognition by the House of Representatives of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the United States of America for exemplary work in the fight against corruption and bad governance in Africa. He currently practices law with the Lumumba and Lumumba Advocates and coordinates activities under the aegis of the PLO Lumumba Foundation. Our guest speaker, Professor PLO Lumumba, is here this morning to present a graduation lecture titled Conspiracy Theory and the Future of Democracy and Development in Africa. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, with a round of applause, please join me as I invite the guest speaker to the lectern on my right for his presentation.
Thank you. Let me begin as my learned friend did to say that I adopt the protocol as already established. Permit me also at the very outset to thank the National Institute for Security Studies for inviting me to join the participants on the occasion of their graduation. Permit me also to extend my sincere, profound, and heartfelt congratulations to the course participants drawn from different parts of the continent of Africa. And permit me also to thank all the ladies and gentlemen who are here present to witness the launch of a book which I've had the advantage very quickly this morning to live through, and which touches very many issues. When you read the book, you will see a mention of a story that we are familiar with, which gives us the phrase, the Trojan horse. It is mentioned in that book. Because there is every danger that many will receive the book but will never read it. It's great. So I urge you to read if it's only to whet your appetite. I'm happy to be here to talk about democracy and to talk about development in the continent of Africa. As I speak about that subject, Africa, like many parts of the world, is going through a phase that is trying. The 55 odd countries in Africa are going through several economic crises. And you only have to look at the way our currencies are behaving. If it is not the Naira, it is the CD. If it is not the CD, it is the Kwanza in Angola, or the Meticais in Mozambique, or the dollar in Zimbabwe, or the franc in Rwanda, or many other countries, Dalasi in the Gambia. There is a crisis in the continent. The continent is going through a crisis, our inability to feed ourselves, what with the floods that we have witnessed, not only in Nigeria, but in different parts of the continent of Africa, telling and warning us is that in the next year, we will have difficulties in the area of agriculture. In the area of health, we are just reeling ourselves off the pandemic of COVID. And we also are aware that aside from COVID, Africa has failed to fulfill many of the promises that she has made to herself over the years. In the year 1980, you will remember, African heads of states and governments sat in Lagos in Nigeria and came up with the Lagos Plan of Action. We promised ourselves then that we would enhance intra-African trade. We did not succeed. Once again, in the year 2001, African heads of states and governments sat here in Abuja in Nigeria, and they undertook to spend a minimum of 15% in their health sectors. Not a single African country met those objectives. In the year 2021, we sat in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and we promised ourselves that we would silence the guns. The truth is that we have not. And indeed, it is in that particular year and this year that we have seen the re-emergence of coup d'etats in the continent of Africa. This year, we dedicated the year as the year of nutrition. And we promised ourselves that the continent would feed herself. The truth is, we are crying and telling ourselves that if we do not receive grain from Ukraine, we will suffer. That is the Africa that I'm about to talk. That is the Africa in which you and me live. That is the Africa that we are wondering about. And in order to understand that Africa, you who are assembled and have been here for the last 10 months, and have been examining Africa I'm aware that you have traveled in most parts of Nigeria and got to understand the state and status of Nigeria. That you have traveled to different parts of Africa and traveled to different parts of the world. So your course has not been an armchair course. You've taken the pulse of the continent. In your course, I want to imagine that you have examined or you have been exposed to the different activities that are taking place in the continent, that you have looked at the activities of ECOWAS and asked yourself whether the West African region is the richer because of ECOWAS. I want to imagine that you have looked at the activities of SADC and asked yourself whether the southern part of Africa is the richer because of SADC. I want to imagine that you have looked at the East African community and posed a similar question. You've looked at the Horn of Africa, the center of Africa, and the Maghreb, and asked yourself whether Africa is the richer. I say this because this continent is a continent with potential. This continent is a continent that has within her the wherewithal to be a leading continent in the world, but she is not. This continent continues to be referred to in derogatory terms as the least development. When you look at the critical indices of development in the continent, we are not doing well. Whether it is in agriculture, as I've already mentioned, we are not doing well. Whether it is in health, we are not doing well. You only have to look at the indices on maternal mortality, child or infant mortality. You only have to look at the crude death rates. You only have to look at the unemployment situation in the continent. You only have to look at our continued dependence on manufactured goods from China and Turkey. And you only have to look at how we continue to export primary products which we do not control to appreciate that we are not in a good space. And there is the tendency, therefore, to pose the question or even to explain away our problems by saying we are victims of a conspiracy of an international kind. That is an easy escape route. And our politicians take that route more often than not. They are able to tell you, we are where we are because we were colonized, they will tell you. They are able to tell you, we are where we are because there is a neo-colonial project which is alive and well. They are able to tell you, we are where we are because of the evil alliance of the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. They tell us that. And you and me, who are victims of their explanations, nod in approval. But are they right when they tell us that that is the source of our problems? Because when we choose to take the position that we are victims of conspiracy, then we do not look at our internal circumstances. Then we do not interrogate our politicians. And I'm suggesting to this audience that there may well be a conspiracy. But that is not the reason why we are where we are. There is a sense in which we too have contributed. The politicians have contributed, and we who follow them, who are the voters, have also contributed. In a manner of speaking, we are co-authors of our own misfortune. And when we are blaming them, we should also blame ourselves. But it is also true to say that the current state and status of the continent of Africa is as a result of an architecture in which we did not participate. Rwanda, as we know it today, is a product of a colonial architecture. Nigeria, including the name Nigeria, is a product of Lord Lugard and the girlfriend. Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, all these countries arbitrarily parceled out in 1884 to 1885 in Berlin. And when they sat in Berlin during that period, not a single African country was represented. Some say Ethiopia was. But what kind of representation? It wasn't, in fact. And why were they dividing Africa into spheres of influence? Because Africa was a hunting ground. So in Ghana, the British would get their gold. In Nigeria, they would get their agricultural products and cotton and leather. In the Gambia, they would visit occasionally when it was winter in Europe. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, they would get the minerals. Remember that all these colonizers started as companies, and later they brought in their administrators. When we started to fight to regain our independence, and we regained our independence, or so we think, complete with the national anthems, complete with new flags, complete with new national mottos. So Ghana, on the 6th of March in 1957, regained our independence. Nigeria did. And all the countries, until we can now count that we are 55 of such independent countries, or 54, depending on what the Moroccans say about Sahrawi. But when we regained independence, we did not alter the situation. Somehow, those who are in the forefront of the struggle for independence retained the architecture of the post-colonial state. I can still very vividly remember, and many of you will remember courtesy of history, on the 7th day of January 1961, that famous speech of Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah in Casablanca, Morocco. He warned those who are present that if we do not unite and create a single country, in the next few years, the leaders here present are going to get used to the titles president. They are going to get used to the titles ministers and governors. They are going to create national armies. And within a short time, we'll be fighting amongst ourselves, and the neo-colonialists will control us remotely. The Osagyefo was right, because that is what exactly is happening as we speak. And the Osagyefo did not stop there. In 1963, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, he again reminded the leaders who are present on that day. There were 32 of them. Each one of them was inspired. And he told them, he told his audience, that is not long ago. It is 59 years ago. Some of us are older than that here. In other words, he spoke when we were born, and he was saying, don't let us leave Addis Ababa without a single currency, without a single army, without a single market. He told us. We did not listen. So today, as I speak to you, we have 33 currencies in the continent of Africa. Naira, CD, shilling, francs, metikais, dalasi, kwanza. And if you want to know, and I do not mean to annoy anybody, if you want to know the status of our currency, when you board an international flight, this is what they say. You can buy anything on duty-free as long as you trade on hard currency, which means the dollar, which means the euro, which means the British pound, and increasingly the Chinese yuan, which means the naira is not a serious currency, which means that the Kenyan shilling is not a serious currency, the CD is not a serious currency, which means that every transaction we undertake in Africa is terminated in the dollar. Even if you go to the banks now here in Abuja, if you ask for dollars, you will see the teller going inside. They keep the dollar a lot more safely than they keep the naira. That is the state in which we find ourselves. The almighty dollar. And I want to imagine that even as the launchers of the book were launching the book, when they were saying 20 million or 5 million, some of you were already counting and calculating how much is it in dollars. We did not listen to the Osagyefo. We ended up in creating these multiple institutions. Julius Nyerere, speaking on the 6th day of March 1997, on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the independence of Ghana, reminded his audience that they had met in 1964 in Accra, Ghana. And in Accra, once again, Kwame told his audience, listen to me. Let us unite. He had said it even in Addis Ababa. Let us unite, and I am prepared not to be the president. I even suggest the capital of that new Africa, let it be in Bangui, or Leopoldville, then called now Kinshasa. They did not listen. And Nyerere says that when they were in Accra, he had a former head of state saying, when the project had failed, I'm happy that I'm leaving Accra, still a president of my country. That is the Africa that you are asking me to talk about. That is her state. disunited as we speak, weak, and sometimes even disrespected. Today, and over the years, the appetite for making Africa great again has never died. It has always been there. And there has been no shortage of efforts across the continent of Africa. In 1963, we ended up with the Organization of African Unity, which did a few good things, we cannot deny. The African Liberation Movement, which was headquartered in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, was one of the bodies that was in the forefront of liberating the countries that had not been liberated. They made a contribution for the liberation of Zimbabwe, for the liberation of Namibia and of South Africa and of Angola and of Mozambique. They made their contribution. But when we regained our independence, there is a sense in which we have not realized our potential despite the best intention of the best of us. Is it the conspiracy? Yes, it is true that there is a neo-colonial project that is alive and well. Yes, there is a sense in which the colonizers left, but they never left. You see it in some of the things that they continue to do. Right now, here in Abuja, there is a meeting of Commonwealth countries to discuss tax. And I say, why meet under the aegis of the Commonwealth? Meet under the aegis of the African Union. And I'm quite certain that the former French colonies will also be meeting somewhere in Abidjan. And it's possible that the former British and Portuguese colonies will also be meeting somewhere in Luanda. The erstwhile colonizer still manipulates us. Our emotional true north is the capital of the former colonizer. If you ask the president of Cameroon where he would want to celebrate his birthday, he will possibly tell you Paris. And he does. If you ask somebody from Angola, they would possibly tell you Lisbon. If you ask somebody from Nigeria, holding all factors constant, where they would want to be, London. If you ask somebody from La Côte d'Ivoire, Paris, Democratic Republic of Congo, Bruxelles, we are mentally captured. We are mentally captured, and until the day we decolonize our minds, we will do all the things that we want to do, but we will never realize our potential. Those of you who are in the military, you know that the occasion where you now say that you've been properly trained is when you have had a stint at Sandhurst. That is a fact, because we still are suffering from inferiority complex. A typical Nigerian or African who is a student and has attended his PhD at the University of Ibadan, from undergraduate to PhD, he then goes for a 3-month training at Cambridge. When he comes back, he now has a sticker on his car saying, "I'm an alumni of Cambridge," after 2 weeks. But he was in Ibadan for 10 years. If that is not mental capture, what is it? when you see, when we are still talking about conspiracy. Many of you are very erudite and you have attended conferences outside of the country. When the American government sent you to the International Visitors Program to visit the United States of America, you think it is for free? No, it is indoctrination. When you see the American Cultural Center in Abuja, do you think it is for free? When you see the Japanese Cultural Center, you think it is for free? The British Cultural Center, the French Cultural Center, the Goethe Institute, the Confucius Institute, the Turkish Cultural Center. Why? Because the mind is the standard of the man and the woman. Control the mind, then you control the individual. And you can sit and you can predict what they are going to do. Africa is a victim of conspiracy to that extent. But we must also ask ourselves the question, are we the only peoples who have been colonized? No. So that argument cannot be available to us only. There are countries which have been colonized and they have succeeded somehow in disentangling themselves from the chains of colonization. India was colonized. South Korea was colonized. Japan was under control. China was colonized. Vietnam was colonized. Malaysia was colonized. Singapore was colonized. Brazil was colonized. Chile was colonized. So the whole question about colonization can no longer be available to us. It cannot be the only excuse why we continue to underperform. There must be something else. Nana Kobina Nketsia, a traditional ruler in Ghana, has written a book, African Culture in Development, the Ghanaian Paradigm. And he says that it is true that the architecture of politics, the architecture of economics, the architecture of everything in Africa was conceived from outside. And we too imbibed it line, hook, and sinker. And I want you to look at it for a little. And he says, by quoting John Henry Clark, that Africa cannot succeed without re-examining her institutions of governance. And we have never. I want you to look at many African countries, both physically and otherwise. When we regained independence, we had constitutions which were referred to as the Westminster Model Constitution. The Constitution of Nigeria is Westminster Model. Until, of course, you wrote your own constitution in the 1907. Kenya, Westminster Model. Zambia, Westminster Model. And it is never lost on me that the house that was occupied by the colonial governor is the very same that is occupied by the independent president. It has never been lost on me that when we form government, we have the same nomenclature that they use ministers. When you go to our parliaments, the white wigs that they use is what our speakers still use. If you look at the way we make decisions, we still have the mace. The way they address their judges, my lord, and I'm a lawyer and we do that. And we think it's such a great thing when we say, my lord. The same thing. In other words, we are mentally captured. Particularly those of us who have had the advantage of formal European education, they don't worry about us. They can predict how we are going to behave. First of all, we are going to speak in English as we are speaking, not in Yoruba. or in Fulani, or Fulfude, or Gibo. They can think that we are going to speak in French, and we even sometimes measure intelligence on one's ability to speak a foreign language. He is very intelligent, he speaks good French. As if you cannot be intelligent when you speak Igbo, or Fulani, or Fulfude. I'm very happy that the federal government has now said that they are going to teach some of these languages in lower classes. That is, and I'm saying this, that we may understand that we have a governance crisis. We have a governance crisis. That is why the African countries are unstable. But in the next 1 year, we are going to have no less than 9 elections in Africa. 9 general elections across the continent of Africa, including here in Nigeria. But in every African country where there is or where there are elections, people are scared. So election is not just a regular process of determining who is going to be in charge of affairs. It threatens the nation. Because it is life and death. Because politics has become the shortest avenue for material aggrandizement. There are 2 things in Africa today. If you want to be rich without working hard at all, be a politician or found a church. That is, in all African countries, that is what I see. That is why people engage in cutthroat competition, and throats are actually cut in pursuit of political power. And that, in my view, undermines development. You know, in the continent of Africa, we now think that periodic elections is what democracy is. That is not democracy. We have perfected the art of manipulating democratic processes. Those who win the elections are not necessarily the ones who win the election, the ones who are announced to have won the elections in many African countries. And when that happens, there is always constant agitation so that we do not address agriculture. We do not address health. We do not address education. The net effect is that development is undermined. It is Julius Nyerere who in 1966 said that when we talk about development, we do not necessarily mean roads, although that constitutes development. We do not necessarily mean big buildings. We mean beyond that the development of the people themselves, their ability to feed themselves with dignity. But do we do that for our people? We don't. We don't. How much do we pay our health workers in many African countries? A pittance. How much do we pay our academics? A pittance. How much do we pay our researchers? A pittance. But how much do we pay our politicians? The whole world. And I'm saying this with pain. Because until the day that Africa begins to think otherwise, we are going nowhere. Our so-called development will be undermined. And Africa has no shortage of declarations that we make. We make many declarations. In the health sector, as I've already said, we said here in Abuja, 15% of our budgets. Not a single country. Tanzania reached 10%, and Mauritius and the Seychelles and Botswana. Today, when we are sick, unless you are suicidal, you don't go to a hospital in Africa. You go outside. You go to India. You go to London. Even ministers for health in African countries will never go to those hospitals. Why? Why? Yet we have the Abuja Declaration on Health. On the air skies, the skies, the only African airline that is running and makes profit is the Ethiopian airline. Yet we have the Yamoussoukro Declaration on free skies. Most airlines have died. Nigeria, dead. South Africa, dead. Ghana, dead. Gambia, dead. Others which claim to be airlines with a single aircraft, which their president can take at any minute without any warning, dead or dying. How can a continent be in that space? Look at little Qatar. Little Qatar. Qatar is smaller than the state of Bauchi. Smaller. Look at the stadia that they have built in 8 years with one resource, natural gas. Compare that, permit me to speak my mind. Compare that with Nigeria. The 5th largest producer of oil on earth. And yet they are accused of fail in the capital. How can we excuse that? How can we possibly excuse that? With gas from the Delta, we are flaring the gas. The Democratic Republic of Congo, with minerals worth $34.1 trillion under her belly. What is she famous for? War. Is that conspiracy from anybody? No. It is us. It is us. And until the day we are able to say that there is something wrong with the things we are doing, we are always going to blame other people. And you can go on and look at the area even of vaccination. You know, when you look at vaccination, not a single African country produced vaccine. We were begging, oh, AstraZeneca, come to us. Oh, Moderna, come to us. Oh, come to... Why should we be given? Don't we have scientists? When I travel across the world, there are Nigerian scientists all over the world doing amazing things. But when they come here, you pay them $100 per month. No conspiracy. I'm suggesting to us that there is something that we must look for inwards. Nigeria, when I was a little younger, used to be famous, Kaduna. Textile industry, leather industry. Then oil came. Everything was abandoned. Today, we are in a crisis. And I'm suggesting that part of our crisis is not only the colonial, but the post-colonial. And as I speak now, what is undermining our development is that there is a new scramble for Africa. The new scramble for Africa is a little bit more different. It is not, they will allow us to have our leaders. We'll elect our presidents. We'll elect our governors. We'll have our ministers. That will happen, but they are not bothered. After we have elected them, you'll then see them sending their arrows ahead. You'll see Bill Gates come and meet your president. You'll see Tony Blair come and meet your president. You'll see Macron come and meet your president. You'll see all of them. And then they will never admit, but they'll be told, if you want money in agriculture, behave this way. If you want money in this area, behave this way. They will never tell that to the Chinese. They will never tell that to the Indians. They will never tell that to the Vietnamese. They will never tell that to the Koreans. But in Africa, they tell us. That is why, as I speak to you now, under this new scramble, the IMF and the World Bank are back. telling you who to hire in your universities, what to sell and what not to sell. It is a sad situation. So today, as I look at Africa in that new scramble, the Chinese are here. I hope that this institution was not built by the Chinese. The Turks are here. The British are here. The French are here. The Qataris are here. The Americans are here. This time round, they are so subtle that we don't even recognize them, but they control us. What are we going to do about it in order to develop? We must do something. And if we don't do that thing else, you who have been trained in this institution, you have traveled the world. You have traveled Nigeria. There are two things that you can do with your traveling. You can marvel. Says it is great in China. You can marvel. You can wonder or feel pain. I'm urging you to feel pain. To feel pain for the continent of Africa, and in your own way, when you go out there, go and do something about it, because it has also been demonstrated that it can be done. I've traveled across this continent and I've seen that development is possible. I was in Rwanda before 1994. I was in Rwanda in 1996. Genocide. 1 million dead. Its obituary written. Will never rise, they said. You go to Rwanda now. They are demonstrating that it can be done. Go to Kigali now. See what they are doing in the health sector in their own small way. See how they are collaborating in the area of mobile telephony in their own small way. It can be done. I've been to Botswana and I've seen what they are doing in their own small way. I've been to Mauritius, see what they are doing in their own small way. And they do not have the resources that other countries have. They do not have the resources that the Democratic Republic of Congo has. And I'm giving these examples to say that indeed it can be done, and it can be done within the continent of Africa. So what we must do is to begin to pull together, as I've been sitting and listening, I was also struggling to have internet in this room. And every effort was being made to connect me to internet. And all those efforts failed. Why? Because we are in an era of the Internet of Things. We are in an era of nanotechnology. It cannot be right that in Africa's largest economy, in Nigeria, I do not have internet at an institution that deals with security. You get the point that I'm trying to make? It cannot be right. And I know why we don't have internet connectivity. It is because we are divided. We have 55 telephone access codes. Nigeria 234, Ghana 233, Kenya 254, Tanzania 255, Uganda 256, Zambia 260, Zimbabwe 263. How can we, in this day and age, you cross into Benin, you cross into Togo, you cross into Guinea-Bissau, you have a different internet connectivity. Why can't Africa have a single satellite and a single telephone code so that when I travel from Mogadishu in Somalia to Dhaka in Senegal, like the Chinese do, like the Americans do, like the Indians do, we can have the same, because communication is critical to development. And I'm saying this, part of my agenda is to prick your conscience with live examples, that you may go out there irritated, but irritated to do the right thing. And I'm suggesting that indeed, when we talk about development, this is what we must do. But is Africa conscious of her state? Yes, Africa is conscious. This is what makes me happy. That after all these analysis, it appears to me that Africans have now recognized that going forward, we can only defeat the conspiracies, we can only have development as we are talking about it by working as a team. And that is why, beyond the Millennium Development Goals, beyond the Sustainable Development Goals, we as Africans under the aegis of the African Union do now have our grand vision of Africa Agenda 2063. And that Africa Agenda 2063, let me tell you, if we can fulfill it, many of you here will be upstairs by the year 2063. But our contribution, perhaps you do not know what I mean upstairs, not up. You will be with the Lord himself. But the most important thing is that Africans are now beginning to see beyond the next election. Because part of our problem in Africa has been that we plan in 5-year circles. We don't have a grand agenda, but now we have a grand agenda. And if you look at the 7 pillars of Africa Agenda 2063, everything is covered. Health is covered. Research and science is covered. Climate change is covered. Women's participation is covered. Democracy and governance is covered. The arts and the culture are covered so that Africa can become a serious player in the international agenda. As we speak now, we are not a serious player. You know, and I say this perhaps too often, but I must repeat it because it is important. I was looking at the GDP of Indonesia. The GDP of Indonesia this year, by the end of this year, will be 1.1 trillion United States dollars. Indonesia is the 17th largest economy in the world using all critical indices. It's amongst the G20. The population is about 200 million, just about Nigeria. Nigeria is a GDP give and take at the very best of 550 billion United States dollars. I'm looking at the power generation in Nigeria. At the very best, you generate about 17,000 megawatts. You lose about half of it, so that what goes into the grid is no more than 8,000 to 7,500 megawatts into your GDP. You are the biggest economy in the world. If you look at Iran, Iran generates 75,000 megawatts. So when we talk about industrialization, we are not even close to industrialization. Look at the diversity of power generation that you have. Most of it is hydro. You are not harnessing your solar. The Kainji dams and the other dams with climate change are going to dry. If you look at the major rivers, it means that you are going to be in trouble. You look at Zimbabwe now, for example, in power generation, 2,000 or give it 2,500 megawatts. The dams are drying, the Kariba is drying. So Africa must begin to think, even as we think of Africa Agenda 2063, because energy is the game changer. Without energy, all these generators you see everywhere in Nigeria must disappear for industrialization to come. And in many African countries, including my own country, Kenya, which generates, I think we have about slightly under 3,000 megawatts. You can't. So we must go to Inga Dam, we must begin to generate. We must go to Egypt at the Aswan High. Egypt is not doing very badly. We must go to Inga, produce 40,000 megawatts. We must go to Ethiopia, the Grand Renaissance Dam, produce 10,000 megawatts. Then we talk of industrialization. And why do I talk about industrialization? There are scientists here. It is only through industrialization that we are going to be manufacturers in all sectors. As it is now, 80% of what we consume in manufactured goods are from China. If China closes shop, we are dead. We are dead. So I'm thinking that Africa Agenda 2063 is a good thing, but we must work at it. I'm thinking that Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a good thing. Launched with its secretariat in Accra, Ghana, a good thing. But how are we going to trade? How are we going to get somebody to drive a truck from Accra, Ghana to Juba or to Asmara in Eritrea without peace and security? So you can also see that peace and security is at the very heart of it. In the United States of America, and many of you are familiar, you can drive a truck from Florida through to Alberta in Canada, and it is safe. The roads are good, the security is there. I'm saying, therefore, that as we talk about development, we must think about development in a very comprehensive manner. We must ask ourselves how we govern. And I want to conclude my presentation to you by telling you that Africa must be very careful. We must be very careful because of lack of resources in Africa. I'm beginning to hear things that worry me. And because I'm a keen student of what is happening in Africa, I'm getting worried on a daily basis. The forces that divide us, the belief by many people in Africa that if we separated from our current countries, we would be better. It is beginning to happen. It is happening here in Nigeria. It is happening. I saw a letter last week addressed to the president of Zambia by a people in Zambia called Baroseland. And they are telling President Hakainde Hichilema that you remember in 1964, we had an agreement with the Lusaka government that the time has now come for Baroseland to become an independent country. Can you believe it? I hear people in Namibia saying, do you remember that there was a strip called the Caprivi Strip? I hear people in Ghana saying that you remember that in the Volta region we had a different country. I hear people in Zimbabwe saying that there should be a country called Mtuakazi. I hear people in South Africa, the South Africans, saying that we should have a separate country in the Western Cape. I hear people in Ethiopia saying we should have Tigray and Oromo. The centrifugal forces are there. And the only way to bring them in is to create a sense of belongingness. The people must feel that they are part of it. I remember the words of John Garang of South Sudan when he spoke in Khartoum. He told the Numeri government, we do not want to create a separate state, but make unity attractive. Make unity attractive, make Sudan attractive, make Khartoum attractive, because if you don't make it attractive, we will separate, and that will make us weaker. And I'm saying this because of this thing we call democracy. Democracy demands that people have a sense of belonging and that they believe that the country in which they live represents their interests and that deliberate efforts are being made in that regard. So, fellow Africans, I'm one who believes that this continent has a contribution to make. There is not a continent today that has the natural resources that this continent has. Not one. There is not a continent today that has a population as young as ours, which could be a resource. There is not a continent. There is not a continent today that has the resources in different diverse ways which can be harnessed. With a population of 1.4 billion, we are a potential market. But we must also warn ourselves. I am aware that you are talking about climate change. It is only through unity, therefore, that we can fight all these. Our rivers are drying. Lake Chad has shrunk by nearly 1/3. The rivers are drying. The climate is changing. The Sahara is coming down south. The rivers down are drying or getting polluted. Our farms are not yielding the way they were yielding before. Our seeds are being destroyed. Our young men and women are running away. And remember, the Germans are now saying, we want young people. The Canadians are saying, we want young people. We are in danger. You who have been trained in this institution, now go back to your countries and tell your countries that yes, there is a conspiracy against the continent of Africa, but the human relationship, is it not about conspiracy? Even in families, are there not conspiracies? Is it not our duty to fight and defeat those conspiracies so that that is no longer an excuse? Go out there and say that we have the possibilities and that these possibilities require and demand that we look at Africa as a total whole. Go out there in your little ways and make your contribution. The 78 of you who are graduating here today, I'm suggesting to you that development must start with you. Go back and let in every institution where you are, let it be said that since he came back from NISS, he or she is different. He is different in a positive way. And all of us who are here, whether we are politicians or academics and in different sectors, let us go out there having made a solemn vow that Africa must do it. If you can't do it for yourself, ask yourself which Nigeria you want to bequeath to your children and your children's children. You are here, maximum 40 years, you will have gone upstairs. But after 40 years, in which kind of country will you want your children to be? This is the question. It is not about you and me. It is about them. This is intergenerational. Africa must change. Africa can change. And it can only change if we change our minds. And our minds we must change. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Please get seated, and as you are doing that, please another round of applause for Patrice Lumumba. You listened to him. You are an eyewitness. You can give an account. But if you were not here, and I left this place and you asked me to tell you what happened, I will only tell you I witnessed an orator. I witnessed a Pan-Africanist, a poet, a prophet, a mobilizer, a community leader. But importantly, I will also tell you I saw a historian, a teacher, a sociologist, and indeed a social engineer. Professor Lumumba is a professor indeed. May we please clap for him. It is not every time we meet activists who are genuinely concerned about their community. And he has resonated the works of Walter Rodney, how Europe underdeveloped Africa. But the message today is that Africa is underdeveloping Africa. And he has left questions for us to ponder on. What about relationships, international, diplomatic, the tribal and brotherhood that should drive African development? And our leaders, I believe, have heard because they have ears. Your message reverberates across Africa, and we know this is not the first of its kind. Everywhere in Africa is dotted with the voice of Professor Lumumba. And as you go preaching the message of hope, message of brotherhood, message of togetherness, a message of greater Africa, our only prayer is that may God and Providence continue to hold you strong. Before we go to the last lap of this event, may I respectfully recognize the representative of the Chief of Defense Staff and the representative of Nigerian Army Resource Center, Major General Rabe Abubakar, Commodore Hassan Sir, Defense Attaché, representative of the Gambian High Commission, Mr. Raymond Nkendrim, MFR. It's been a worthy outing. It's been exciting. It's been momentous. It's been something to take home with. And I think we have no regrets attending this event. Just a few months ago, a book on the DG again for the record, a compendium of YM Beach's legacy at the DSS was launched. And today, launching another one in his honor tells the story of a man who has continued to hold his head high and to hold his shoulder in confidence that he has driven this car to a proper destination. While I exit the platform, I want to once again thank you for coming. And again, I remain yours sincerely, Dr. Peter Nochronye Afunanya, FSI. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Peter Afunanya. We are gradually, like Peter said, drawing to a close. And before I invite the Deputy Commandant for a vote of thanks, just a few announcements. Graduating participants, there will be a group photograph with the dignitaries at the NISS photo stand immediately after this event. We also have refreshments for all our guests. The VIPs will have their refreshment at the DG holding room. Others will be entertained too. We are grateful that you are here. It is on that note, Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that I most respectfully invite the Deputy Commandant and Director of Studies, Mr. D.E. Egbeji, FSI Daga, FDC, for a vote of thanks.
You want to take number? The National Security Advisor, ably represented. The DG State Services, ably represented. All other dignitaries on the high table, especially our guest lecturer, the Commandant, NISS, esteemed invitees, faculty members, about to be graduated graduates. Have you seen your result? I have not given you your result. Some of you will not go. Once again, good afternoon, everybody. I want to sincerely stand here to say what we have listened to this afternoon. We may clap our hands, having listened to an orator. Let us reflect on what he has said. It should sadden all of us if we follow the trajectory that he has just narrated. We have an opportunity to make a new leaf for those who are coming behind. I've always told you people that for all the participants, you have finished first half. You are already in second half of your life. So he described it as going up. We are all going up very shortly. But what are we leaving behind? That's what you have to ponder upon. What you have heard is just very little of what is coming ahead. For the Institute, as all have said, we are trying to make it a place of extra excellence. Not excellence center, extra excellent. So expect more of this. Today we'll have a graduation lecture. In 2 days' time, we'll be graduating the participants. I want to appreciate everybody for honoring our invitation. First of all, I want to sincerely thank the NSA, who received us yesterday when we had to do our executive brief. And today, due to unforeseen or engagement that are beyond his control, he has to ably send a representative who was also with us there yesterday. The NSA will appreciate you, sir. Our DG, the man of the people, he was with us yesterday, and we all agreed, or he consented that he was going to be here today. But just as it do happen when we are in the circle of government, 1 second program changes. I want to sincerely thank the representative of the DG, extend our appreciation to the DG, that we appreciate all that he has doing for this situation. Thank you very much, sir. For our chief launcher of the book and our co-launcher, it's not easy to attract these people. You know how much they have sacrificed to be here in terms of naira or dollar. They have lost a lot. It's not easy to spend 2 hours out of your business to be here. We appreciate our chief launcher. We appreciate our co-launcher, the ex-governor. Thank you very much, sir. For all the invited guests, we have taken your time. It's a sacrifice. If you were not here, maybe this hall would have been empty. As I normally say, it is very discouraging to give a lecture and you have no audience. For all our guests who have honored our invitation, being here, the diplomats that are here, representative, and the traditional ruler that is here, we thank you all for coming. We appreciate you being here with us, sir. Please extend our regard to all those who are representing, the service chief represented, the IGP, the former IGP here. I don't know how to thank you because you have always honored us. We are proud of you. For my esteemed faculty members, I think we can clap for ourselves again. I've twisted you for the past 10 months to make sure this occasion comes, and you succumb upon all the difficulties. We're able to mold the 78 participants. It started as very rough as it was, but it's very smooth today. I'm sure the participants will agree that you did a good job on them. Faculty members, well done. For the participants, you want to graduate, Abby? Well, I will see into your result as I leave this place. Eh? If I call you back to my office, that means there's a problem. I want to sincerely appreciate the participants for the cooperation given the Institute. I want to appreciate the National Headquarters directors who have honored us to be here, and the ADSs from National Headquarters who are also here, who have cut or who have increased your work for the day, because you know the service job does not finish. When you leave here, you must go and treat those files. Thank you for spending your time to be with us. I also remember that we have the state directors here with us. Some called that they got the invitation, George this morning. I remember Kanu SDS called me last night that the courier we sent since last week, he got it yesterday. That's Nigeria. Courier service. So for all the state directors who are here, we appreciate your time being with us. For all other members of the public, especially the press, the media, the band, and all the security agencies here who have come to work with us to ensure that we have a successful graduation lecture and the book launch, we appreciate all of you. On behalf of the Commandant, National Institute for Security Studies, AS Adeleke, FSI Daga MNI, the Muja Gwandu, and the management of the Institute, we wish all of you journey message back. Thank you for your coming. At this point, may I honorably invite the Commandant of the Institute to make some presentations for our guest. The Commandant, sir. The guest lecturer, sir. You know, behind every successful man, there's always a good woman. We have all been listening to him, but that is the prof's wife. Madam, we thank you very much, ma'am. The NSA, sir. The DG State Services. The Chief Launcher, sir. The co-launcher, sir. For want of time, all other service chiefs and the rest of the dignitaries, the souvenirs will be given to you individually. Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Commandant. Just before we take the last item, which will be the national anthem, although my co-compare had recognized him in passing, I wish to recognize, and please give him a round of applause, Professor Bolaji Owosanyo Sand, Chairman ICPC. He is here himself in person. You're very sorry. Thank you. In attendance also, we have Dr. Musa Ibrahim Goni, Conservator General of the National Park Service of Nigeria. Sir, we recognize you. Thank you once again, everybody, for being here. We appreciate you. We expect to see you on Saturday for the graduation proper. On that note, Mr. Chairman, please may we rise for the national anthem.